What's up, guys? Welcome back to Boost Brothers Garage. In this episode, we are going to be doing a deep dive on David's Time Attack 240 SX. So you guys know David, you have seen him a lot on the channel. I've taken an interest in his car and in how he did in GRIDLIFE this year. Things were going well and he was starting to really progress and get used to the car and the new setup, and then he popped a rocker arm on the engine. So unfortunately his season ended a little abruptly. So now in the off season, we're gonna follow along with his build. He's doing, I guess, version 3.0 this time, and he is ditching the SR and swapping to a, well, I'll let him tell you. All right, David, so why don't you give us a brief rundown of the car, how you got it, and what you first did to it.
So in 2011, going into my senior year of high school, I purchased this along with an SR. After taking the car apart and starting to build it back up in high school, I had to go to college. I worked on it periodically here and there, but it was really after college that I got a chance to fully get the car back together. I was able to complete phase one of the build, which was swapping in the SR, putting a Performance Electronics PE3 engine management system on it, getting the car tuned with a Blitz turbo kit on it to around 260 wheel horsepower. Me and my friends refer to the work that I did in phase one as the previous owner. After I drove the car for literally a couple times, I decided to strip it all back down again and cage it. This car has just proved to be a platform for me to learn, so I learned how to wrench on it, I learned how to fabricate on it, and I learned how to weld and cut tubes on it.
Was it a pre-designed kit, or did you bend it all yourself? How'd you do it?
It started as a pre-designed kit, but I slowly made adaptations to it to make it suit my goals, as well as fit the car better than a universal cage would. The only thing I really ended up using from the kit was the main roll hoop and the halo hoop. I pretty much redid everything myself. In the back I added, a cross brace and a strut tower brace, and I just kind of, when you start building the cage, you just start looking, well, I could put a tube there and I could put a tube there, and then before you know it, your car's heavy again. While
we're back here, you want to talk about that fuel cell you got?
Yeah, it's just a fuel safe enduro cell. It's the SFI certified cell, and I went ahead and it's a 15-gallon cell. I got it for $85. One of the things that I made sure to do was I have an internal pump, along with I have a trap door set up in the sump, so never had any fuel starvation issues. I don't have a multiple pump surge tank set up, so at least for my power level, which was around 300 wheel this year, it served its purpose. After I decided to run GRIDLIFE, Time Attack, and Street Mod this year, and I was doing the cage, and I was getting it all ready to go road racing, I worked with Mechanical Advantage Racing, and they run our Performance Electronics ECUs on their cars right now, and I've been helping them, and they kind of wanted to take me on as one of their teammates. Performance Electronics, my company, has helped me a whole lot with getting this car to where it is, along with Borg Warner. I'm running the EFR 7163 twin scroll on the engine with a full race manifold, and on E85 that setup is just killer.
Well, it was.
Yeah, well, it was so killer it killed the engine. The engine is a bone stock SR20 DET. It has ARP head studs, a Konig metal head gasket, a fake Greddy oil pan. That's really it. It was sitting at about 300 wheel all season. SR20s, they have some rocker arm limitations, and I broke a rocker arm at Road America going into the kink. We'll throw that footage in right now. So the Blitz turbo I had on the engine previously was supposed to be a very responsive, awesome turbo, and it was. But when I put on the 7163, it was night and day. It just responded so much quicker. It would just light up so quickly.
So you had the power plant all figured out and dialed in. obviously you had to do something for suspension and brakes and wheels and tires.
I just decided I wanted to run the AO52. I'm running a 265 because if you actually look on Tire Rack, the available 265s and 285s, the 265 actually had a wider tread on it. So I'm running Konig Hypergram 18 by 10.5s all the way around. I'm doing a square setup, so 265s all the way around. And these are their flow-formed wheels. They're in race bronze. I had 5 Ziegen FN01 RC 17 by 9s on here before, and the amazing thing is moving to the bigger wheel actually was a whole heck of a lot lighter than those 5 Ziegens.
What'd you do for brakes?
The brakes are just Z32 300ZX calipers, master cylinder, Brembo rotors for that application. The front rotors are actually for a 350Z, not a 300ZX.
And you feel like the braking is sufficient so far?
So at Gingerman, I was running a high-performance street pad, and it had a lot of fade, and it really didn't inspire a lot of confidence in a car that I built myself and was already not confident in. The whole year I've braked very conservatively, but at Mid-Ohio and Road America, and thank God I had these at Road America, so I switched to a Hawk DTC pad. These brakes, I've never experienced fade on them yet. They hook. And they hook hard.
So talk about your coilover and sway bar setup.
So previously I had TiAns on the car, and
Tine?
I
had never known.
I don't know, but all I knew it was time to change those. So I got some Fortunato 510s. The team at Fortunato is so good. I'm an EFI guy, I'm not an expert on suspension. I emailed the guys at Fortunato, basically told them tires and weight and what I'm trying to do with the car and what it's primarily used for. They don't lie when they say hand built for you. They hand built me an awesome suspension setup that I've had no issues with this year. The car has tons of grip. Along with the 510s, my sway bar setup is actually a little unknown at the moment. That was one of the modifications that the actual previous owner has already done. We actually found from talking to some other guys who have raced S chassis, I don't run a rear sway bar. I did at Gingerman, and I had some issues with how the car handled, and taking that rear sway bar off helped a lot. COVID shuffled the calendar for my events, so my first event actually was an SCCA event at Gingerman. I was a little ambitious at Gingerman, and I was shooting for the sub 140s at my first race ever, so I didn't achieve that, and I only had one big off, which you can see here. The second event I did was at Mid-Ohio, so again, I felt more confident that I had a track day under my belt, but also was super daunting that now this track had walls and was a lot higher speed. Luckily I had those Hawk pads so that I can actually slow down. I managed a 138 at Mid-Ohio that weekend. That was still 8 seconds off from the class leader, but with no aero and only 300 horsepower, I think next year I'll be able to get a lot closer to that. My third and final event for the season was Road America. Again, higher speeds, more walls, a kink. Unfortunately, that weekend had a lot of rain, and the only dry session I actually got, I suffered an engine failure. So I really was shooting to do 4 events this year. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the car repaired in time, and I kind of wanted to regroup and plan for a much more aggressive next year. Originally, I had already planned to do the SR20 VE head swap, but unfortunately they're kind of hard to come by and getting expensive.
Push the easy button, get the K24. What are your plans with internals and turbo and wastegate and blow-off valve, and what exactly are you going to do, and what are your power goals?
To start off with, I'm going to stick with the EFR 7163. I'm going to either have to find a manifold that someone makes or maybe fabricate one myself. The EFR turbo that I'm running comes with an internal wastegate, and that's actually a big help because I'm running a twin scroll turbo. So to have an external wastegate, I'd need 2 wastegates. TiAl actually makes an actuator with 2 ports on it, which I've been running all season.
With that, you'll get the advantages of the internal wastegate, but it'll still be a true dual port setup, so you'll have more controllability?
Yeah, so I'll be able to run a 4-port boost controller if I choose, and that's going to help increase the amount of boost range that I have, which I'm starting to learn is very important. Every single time I've gone to the track so far, it's rained. And I quickly get outclassed by cars that have things such as traction control and anti-lock braking system. Hopefully next year I'm going to dial in the traction control on the PE3 ECU. The biggest difference for this car next year is going to be Aero. If you saw the car on track this year, it looks kind of goofy. It looks like it's sitting too high. It looks like it's kind of naked without a big old rear wing and a front splitter and an air dam and all that good stuff. And I'm hoping that Aero's really going to add some stability to this car. One of the biggest shortcomings this year was that I was running an open diff. It really impacted how the car drove, especially on corner exit. I have an OS Geiken ready to go in for next year. So along with Aero and 100 to 150 more horsepower and better gearing, hopefully, I think that the car is going to be a pretty decent contender.
I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited to follow along with this build. The more and more I'm around Time Attack builds, the more excited I get about it. Still hoping that Alan and I can do a Time Attack build ourselves. Whether or not that's going to happen for 21, it's probably not likely because we have so many projects, but at least I can live vicariously through David for now. David, any final words?
Make sure you follow Scar_S13 on Instagram.